Dean, I feel like it's been a little while since we've been together, so it's good to have you all join us tonight. I am so looking forward to introducing Carmen to you. I thoroughly enjoyed her book, After She Falls. If you have not gotten a copy yet, make sure you do, because it is an amazing story. And Carmen is going to share some of that with us as she joins us here. It is her. Oh, hi, Carmen.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. It's always fun when the author pops in.
Hello.
So we are so glad to have you here tonight with your debut novel that released today. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here on the book birthday.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
I have to laugh because I didn't realize that was a thing until just a few years ago, where it's like a book birthday. It's like, oh,
Yep.
Yeah,
really is.
Yeah, it's just a thing. So it's just fun. So you've had several birthdays in the last few years.
Yes.
So you are a busy mom.
Yes, I am a mom of 3 under 4, my 3.5-year-old, my 1.5-year-old, and my 3-month-old. So all about the birthdays.
Yeah. And then you still wrote a book. So
I still wrote a book. Yep, I did. It was.
So you don't sleep, I take it.
Not as much as I like to sleep. It's less and less of a thing that I do, but I hear that one day I will again. So
right after I retire, I hear I get to take naps when I want
to. Yeah. Something to look forward to.
Right. Plan ahead. So
yes.
So now that we've gone down a bunny trail, I did warn you I do that, but
that's okay.
Tell us a little bit about After She Falls and where it came from.
Sure, love to. So After She Falls is, years in the making. I try really hard to remember like exactly when it started. I think when it really started was a few years ago, 2017, I think, maybe. I took a screenwriting class. And before that, I got my master's degree in English literature and creative writing. So I had some background writing, creative stuff, short stories. I took one novel writing class, but I didn't really leave that degree program totally sure of like how to write a book. I knew that like I wanted to, and I was determined to sort of figure it out. I took screenwriting because I thought that would be helpful and just kind of change it up. And one of the assignments in the class was create a scene inspired by your favorite movie. And my favorite movie is Rocky. And so I just kind of thought like, how can I use a lot of the elements that I really love in Rocky, but, change it into a story that's very, 2021, that is more of a story that, just kind of reimagine it. And that's kind of how After She Falls was born. Just that one little scene, and I ended up really enjoying it. I thought it was cool, instead of a male protagonist, I have a female protagonist. Instead of boxing, we have mixed martial arts, set in a very, current world. And I just kind of took it and ran with it from there. And, the elements are similar. It's an underdog story, romance, love story, obviously very important Christian arc to it. And then if you've watched Rocky and you've enjoyed Rocky, you'll like pick up on little things here and there throughout the story, but it's pretty, it's loose. It's its own unique little underdog tale that sort of nods to that classic Rocky movie. So,
and it does. And my husband, when I was reading it, I mentioned that to him because he loves Rocky. We have watched that. I can probably quote things at you, and it's not my favorite, but
sure,
hey, he likes it, so you watch it. He watches my movies too. So
there you go.
Yeah. So he was like, "Oh, I'm going to have to read it now."
Yeah. Actually, I love some men have read it and they've told me like, actually, I like, I can, it's not necessarily like probably their favorite book. It was written more for the female audience, but it's action packed. And if you do,
it is that.
You like MMA, you like Rocky, you'll definitely probably get into at least those parts of the story.
Okay.
And if you don't like that, then you have the romance.
Right. And if you don't know anything about it, like you learn lots.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, MMA is a completely foreign world to me. I know nothing about it other than what I've now read about in the books, which really was very interesting because, you present the world of MMA as a very small place. Like everybody
Mhm.
knows each other.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
like that part of it. That was really interesting.
That is actually one really lesser known thing about the mixed martial arts world, is that there really is a Christian subculture in MMA. Like, and I mean that you kind of have that in all sports. Like, you have lots of Christian athletes, but in MMA, it's particularly interesting because it's a little controversial. People fighting each other. It is violent. It's all of this, but there are many, many Christians in the MMA world, and a lot of them work together, train together, they do ministry together. And so I kind of did want to, tap into that because it does exist. And so fun place to put a story.
It
Build it.
was.
Yeah.
Again, a whole new world to me. So fascinating. So you've been involved in it. You have done that
Yes.
fighting.
Yes. So I'm not like a professional by any stretch of the imagination. I started boxing, just training for fun, when I was like 16 years old. And off and on since then, I'm 29 now. I have, I've done it for a couple of years, and then I'm taking a break, and I've gotten back in, and it's sort of off and on. Boxing and Krav Maga. Krav Maga is Israeli style self-defense. So very different from boxing. Those are two very different styles of fighting, but I learned a ton. I learned a lot in the short amount of time that I did Krav, and I still box to this day.
Interesting.
Yes. And I really, what I've learned is through watching it. I like watching combative sports. So, I follow UFC fights and follow the fighters that I like. And with social media, you can get really glimpses into their lives outside of fighting and all of that. And so it's just been really, in the last 8 years or so, is when I really started to kind of like pay close attention. But I personally just love the training. People ask me like, oh, do you want to be like a fighter? Are you like Audrey? I'm like, no, I don't want to be like punched in the face. I don't have any interest. I'm not like resilient enough. I mean, I could, but I don't want to. It's a specific type of, it's an athletic mindset that I really appreciate. I don't have, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. I have to admit, well, reading some of the fight scenes, I'm like, I don't know why anybody would want to do this.
Well, a lot of fighters themselves will admit that, like, it's
really,
yeah, it's that, it never stops hurting. You never like get past that point, but it's just that drive to do, and it is an art, it's mixed martial arts. And so if you kind of have that mindset, you've dedicated your life to it. I imagine it's more satisfying. I don't know, personally.
Yeah.
I find it very inspiring and impressive. But yes, same with you. I wouldn't want to do it personally.
No, I'd be the one running in front of the person. You have to catch me.
Yes. Hey, that's a style of fighting too. Wear them out. Just run around.
I'm not that fast, so they'll probably catch me. So there's another element to this story, which I absolutely loved. In fact, the opening scene, I think gave me nightmares after I read it. Honestly, it just did. But that is that undertone that runs through this book the whole way. And it deals, for those that haven't read it, I'm not giving anything away. You can see it, in the book description, but there's an abusive relationship here.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
Yeah.
So that opening scene is very, a lot of people have told me that's a rough, I guess it's not the opening scene, it's like the second.
You're right.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Sorry. You're right.
Yes. Yes. Basically the scene that shows you Audrey's reality, what she's dealing with. And it was important to me to really try to write that element well. I have been in an abusive relationship before. Not to that extent. My experience was very different from Audrey's. I wasn't married to the person. We didn't have a child. It wasn't that we weren't nearly as enmeshed with each other. But it really did open my eyes as a very young woman to how this kind of happens, how you sort of get sucked in, how you second guess yourself so much that you just end up, feeling very trapped and feeling like your options are dwindling away. And in some cases they really are, and so I really kind of wanted to capture that reality, because I think people need to recognize it. I hope people will be more sensitive to it, especially, she's an unexpected person for that to happen to, right?
Right.
Who expects a professional fighter to find themselves in a position where they are being abused? But kind of my own story is that I think when people probably knew me when that was going on, they wouldn't have ever expected that it was happening to me either. And so I kind of just wanted to bring that to the forefront of like, this is an issue that is very insidious, and people, obviously the abuser is trying to hide it, and sometimes the person who's being abused is trying just as hard. And just wanted to, hopefully, if any women who read it are in that similar type of situation, they will feel that, some sense of resonance to what's going on with them, and just kind of feel that permission to do something, to make a choice to get out. So
Yeah. So I'm trying to frame this in that, because I'm glad you got out. That's amazing. And I know other stories too, but
right.
And if there's anything in here you don't want to talk about, please say so. I will not be
Sure.
offended. Okay. But what was the trigger for you to go, okay, this is enough?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So what happened for me was I had a very good friend, who, over the course of my relationship with this person, I was drifting away from that friend, because that's kind of what happens, right? You get in this relationship, they start to kind of control you and consume you. And then the people around you who you're close to, you sort of slowly break them off. And right before I was probably going to break away from her permanently, she said, I told her, I told the truth. Well, I told sort of the truth. I said, so-and-so really does some really messed up things, but I feel like we're in love. I feel like I need to stick it out. Some little cry for help, but veiled in kind of vague language. And she said something along the lines of, and she must have known, and she said something along the lines of, Carmen, that doesn't make any sense. You are a very strong person. This doesn't make sense, or something. That was kind of like the last thing that we said. And then our relationship, we did kind of drift apart. And I spent a little more time trying to hold that abusive relationship together. But I think that statement of like, this doesn't make sense, you are strong, just for what, got the wheels turning in me of like, this really doesn't make sense, Carmen. Why do you think this is love? Like, why do you think this is, why do you think this is what God wants for you? Why do you think, and that was kind of, and it was kind of a gradual thing from there. I was very fortunate that this person eventually lost interest in me, which most people do not get so lucky, as that. At the time, it was very heartbreaking to me. But when I look back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, what a just unmerited love, grace from God that this person just kind of faded out of my life. But that statement of, you're strong, this doesn't make sense, that was really kind of what sent me on this planted the doubt in my mind that I should be fighting so hard for this relationship.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Because, I'm always interested in what can I do if I suspect.
Yeah.
So
it's really hard. It's very hard to know. Most women in that situation, for various reasons, are not going to be upfront about it. And, they might really be in love with the person. It's very hard. So it is. Little seeds, little nudges.
Yep.
Letting them know that you're there.
I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. So
right, exactly.
Yeah. There's a book, and I don't mean to trail away from your book, but there's a book I read by Kristen Hannon that was like your book. Well, it really opened my eyes as to why they stay.
Yeah.
It's just, I really like that aspect of your book, because I think that's, because you hear that all the time. Well, why don't they just leave? It's not that simple.
Right. Well, especially in Audrey's case, they have a child together. There's a lot of, there's just a lot of it's really not that easy.
No,
You
it
love,
isn't. Yeah.
you really can love the person even when they're not loving to you. And so it's a lot to very much like untangle. And so, yeah,
Yeah. So,
would be nice if it was simple, but
and life
it's
never
not.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but again, thank you for sharing that. I think that's an
Yeah.
important part of Christian fiction that not everybody sees, is where we can learn from somebody's experience, even if it's in a fiction book. You
Right.
brought your
Right.
own experience too, but that way we can learn something. And I love that you included that. So,
Thank you. Thank you. It's really important to me that I hope I did well. I hope it's good, you know. It's
yep.
a topic that I wanted to tackle, and hopefully I'm glad you enjoyed it. So
Oh, you're welcome. And to be honest with you, it's one of those that I'd like to see more of, because to be honest with me, when they were telling me that it was about mixed martial arts and it was about an abusive relationship, I was like, how does that work? But it makes sense.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
there you go. So I did get a question while I was off on those questions. There is somebody wanted to know, did any part of the path to publication surprise you?
That's a good
I think it's
question.
a good question. Yeah.
Yeah. The path to publication, you know, probably all of it. This is my debut novel, so I didn't know what I was doing.
Okay.
The path to publication for me was when it started to really like click together, is because you know, a lot of it is I figured out how to do it by myself. I went to writing conferences, I listened to people talking about getting an agent, I read blog posts, I did probably what most people do. And then I went to a conference here in Kansas, just a little writing conference, and I met my agent that I have now. And we just kind of hit it off. And I didn't have a book then, I just had a concept. I think it was like maybe like halfway done or something like that. And you know, she was very excited, exchanged emails, all of that. And then some time went by, I followed back up with her. And what I really loved about her is, you know, we're both Christians, we both live in Kansas. She was super excited about the book and about me, and it was just a good, you know, I felt like she was going to be a very good advocate for me. It wasn't just the book, it was Carmen, the person. And we're both kind of like little Kansas underdogs. That's what we agreed on. It's like we're scrappy, and we're not necessarily we're not like big names, but we are working hard over here. And really, when we teamed up, the publication process became much easier. You know, obviously for me, when you have an agent and someone who advocates for you, that's very nice. And she opened my eyes to a lot of what to expect after that part of the process. But yeah, I mean, when you're just figuring it out, I think anytime you get an email from somebody who's like, oh, can I see the full manuscript? You're like, okay, let's go.
Ain't got one.
Yeah, right. I'll get back to you.
I'll
Yeah,
get back to
so
you. Give me a
yeah.
month.
Yep.
So
So
how
that was my
long? Go ahead.
no. Oh no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, how long
Rambling.
is your, I shouldn't, because it's your first book, I know you, and we will talk about that in a little bit, is that you're working on another one, but what is your writing process like then?
So it's changed since I've added so many children over the years.
Yeah, that'll do it.
When I was writing after She Falls, it was more straightforward. I would just kind of wake up early and get my writing done. I had a job at the university. I would go work and then come back and write a little more. You know, it was pretty wake up early, get your writing done. Now it's much more like piecing together a weekly schedule of hours on this day and hours on that day. And as far as like kind of the creative process goes, I'm definitely in between, you know, people say like, what is it? Pantser and what's the other one? Plotter. Yeah. I'm in the middle. Like I like to have major events figured out and even some scenes.
Okay.
But I have found throughout my process that typically as I'm writing, they will change, you know, like I kind of let the events of one scene change the events in another. So I'm not super like attached to any part of it, except for a few major pieces. Another thing I like to do is if I do get stuck, I typically will like watch a favorite movie and then write down sort of like action points, like, you know, character A reveals a secret to character C or something, just because it gives me some like stuff to work with and think about, like, okay, this is how you get it moving, and that helps me move it right along. But yeah, I can't be super picky anymore with all my children. I can't be prissy, I can't be picky. I just sit down and write when I have time to write, and pray a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely, feel like God is very much a part of the process. I think of things that with my foggy mom brain I should not be able to like figure out, comes to me. So it's kind of wild. It's kind of a wild process, but fun.
But if your foggy mom brain is thinking of those things, you definitely need to be an author then. So
right. That's true. Well, I think you should be an author when like you wake up at like 2 a.m. and you're like, I know that thing that I need to do in that chapter that was messing me up, and you like write it down. That's your sign that like you're in it. You're in it for the long haul, because your brain is doing weird things for you, helping you out.
Yep, there's several weird author things that I've heard of over the years. That's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a famous story I heard that one of the authors was on vacation one time driving with her husband, and it's like, oh, stop the car, and he slams on the brake thinking they're gonna hit somebody or somebody's dying or something, and she's like, oh, this is where my characters first kissed. She said he almost pushed her out of the car. So
that is really
okay.
funny. I do have a song that I always think of with Max and Audrey, and whenever it's on my little YouTube playlist and it comes on, I'm like, everyone be quiet. Like, we need to listen. We need to appreciate the romance here. But my husband likes the song too, so it's good.
Oh, well, that helps. That does help.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, so I'm going to flesh it out a little bit and ask something else. Somebody asked, is this going to be part of a series? I think I know the answer, but go ahead and answer. But I'm also then going to ask, would you ever think of doing a series?
Oh, okay. So the answer is no, it's not part of a series. Maybe, I don't know. When I wrote it and I was done with it, I felt very done with it. Like, I was like, it felt very much like a standalone. And I do think, as much as I like the Rocky series, I think, there is something very artistic and iconic about the first one. And then they increasingly get a little, gimmicky, a little cheesy. That just starts to happen. I think that happens in a lot of series, at least cinematically, not so much in books. But, I guess part of me just kind of likes the idea of it being its own special underdog story, not trying to tease out more things. But, you never know. I do love the story a lot. And maybe after I get a few more out of my system, I'll want to return to it and revisit it. Could be kind of fun. Kind of be like the, Rocky 6. I can go back when Audrey's really old or something. It'd be fun.
And Eve is fighting now.
Yeah, Eve is.
Yeah, there you go.
I can totally do that. It'd be kind of cool.
That would be cool. I have to agree though that having read the end, now Eve's story would be good, but it's like, no, it's done.
Right. It felt very done to me. It felt very like, this is the story I wanted to tell. It had all the elements I wanted. I love these characters. Let it be. let it live on. And it's Yep. So
now, and I couch this with you being a mom of 3, do you do a lot of reading like for research or just for fun?
Yes, but very sporadically, very like, not like how I like to read. So I used to read books all the time. I always had a big pile of Christian fiction. Now what my reading mostly looks like is I'll kind of find books that I think are sort of related to what I want to write, and then read them and then keep them as almost like reference materials, and then just sort of return to them. And that can like look like years of doing that, like the same 3 books. My favorite author to return to, it's probably a cliche answer at this point, but I do love Francine Rivers. I do think, she's fantastic at what she does, whether it's historical, whether it's contemporary. I like them all. They're what really got me into Christian fiction and writing in general. So I have all of her books. Sometimes if I'm stuck, I'll just go grab one and kind of, rifle through. figure out, see what she's kind of doing. How's her dialogue working? How's the romance element working? And just see what new thing I can learn and give it a go. I wish I could read more than I do. One day.
Someday.
One day.
Your children
Yeah.
will be grown and then
I
you'll
know.
read again.
Well,
So
and now, with Bethany House, they send me all these great books all the time. So I have a huge pile of books just looking at me all the time that I'm like, these would be so fun to read. But one day,
for
when
some
I have
reason,
time.
those children need to be fed. I don't know.
Yes,
why. We just
I
insist
know.
on it every day. So
Audiobooks. I need to get some audiobooks. But even
There
then, it's still a little rough.
yeah. And did you know Francine's got a new one coming?
Oh, I knew about her movie. I didn't know there's a
Yeah.
new book.
I know that movie, that
Oh.
COVID ruined that. It was supposed to be out
Yeah.
last year, but
Yeah.
yeah, I can't wait for that. But no, she's got The Lady's Mind, like a digging
Oh,
ore mine. Yeah. So
cool.
I don't remember the
I'll have to-
exact date. Maybe somebody can pop
I'll
in.
have
and
to read that one.
But
I'll have
yeah,
to make
see,
time.
put it on your
to find a
list
way. Yeah.
because that reading pile never gets smaller, right?
No, really
No.
doesn't. I'm very behind.
Yeah. We all are. We're just going to spend eternity sitting in our little chairs reading the books we didn't read here. So
Yes. Yes.
definitely. So, well, I'm glad to hear that you like Francine.
I
that's
do.
neat. So she's a neat lady, and I agree. So I did want to ask, and I thought of this earlier, and then we wandered off. Now most of this you did personal experience, but was there other research you did for this book, like with the MMA or
Oh,
even?
sure.
Okay.
Yes. So I did have to fill in a lot of gaps. Like, I have trained, I've done some combative sports, but not in the professional setting. And then a lot of the things that Audrey is doing are things that I can't do. So, I had to like watch YouTube videos, and sort of a lot of time was spent figuring out how to make those sorts of things like reader friendly, like if that makes sense, because
Does.
it's kind of hard. Hopefully when you're reading it, it's not hard to visualize it, but it is
Right.
kind of hard to write that, if that makes sense. Like, trying to get people to see like certain kicks and like the progression of punches in a way that's like accurate. And I will say, it is fiction. It's a little, it's glamorized. Like, fights are not typically as exciting as every single fight in my book. Like, a lot of fights are much more like, just straight punching for a long time. That would be boring to read though. So I incorporate like, a lot of tricks and stunts and kicks and things to keep the reader, interested, keep it moving. And typically, you're not going to finish fights as fast as Audrey does, but for the sake of pacing, I don't want to have a million fights that are just ongoing. So there is I fully admit that it's entertainment. I've taken a real thing and I've made it more for entertainment consumption. But to make it realistic, yes, I did have to watch YouTube videos and read. I read a lot about how fighters would describe like their own training, and that would kind of help me think about how are they experiencing this so that I can describe it for the reader.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
that was things I didn't think you were going to say. So that's it. And I have to admit, I do feel better about the fights that I'm like, boy, these are awesome fights. Maybe I should watch them. But
Yeah. So that's the thing. If you ever do watch a UFC fight, what it's typically going to look like, if you buy a pass to a UFC fight, there's a whole bunch of fights. It goes from like 5 p.m. and then the very last big deal fight is at like midnight. So you'd be there like all night if you want to go. Most people don't go that long. They start with the fights that are lesser known fighters, almost like openers, people who need the exposure, that kind of thing. And then increasingly, more and more famous fighters, the people that people are paying to see. And you never know, like sometimes it can be a really fun fight. It can be very exciting. And other times they just like lay on top of each other on the ground for forever. And it's super boring and the audience hates it. I didn't include any of those because, that would have been kind of lame.
super boring. And we would have had a page forward.
Exactly.
I guess I should have known that. It's just one of those things. It just was, it really was interesting to read. I can't get over how interesting it was to me, that knowing so little about it, but
Yeah. I'm so glad you could get drawn in. I'm always really appreciative when people give it a chance, because I understand that MMA is not for everyone. I understand it's kind of intimidating. I do think for a lot, not everyone's going to enjoy it, but I think hopefully it's accessible enough, and there's enough other elements that it's, even if you are intimidated and a little freaked out, you will eventually kind of be like, okay, I can be in this. I can at least observe this world and know what's going on and enjoy it. So,
and I liked when earlier tonight you said, there's those Christians, and I like that. We, I know there's going to be people that would say, well, can't be a Christian book. They're beating each other up. And yet you tell me in the real world, there is this element there. And
right. It's a real debate among Christians, whether or not MMA is sinful. Personally, I just don't find a lot of the arguments that it is very compelling. I think it certainly could be. I think if you go in there and you really are full of hate, and I could see how it could be. But for a lot of these people, it's an art, it's a sport, it's a they're volunteering to do it. They train, they put their own time and discipline and effort into doing it because they love it. They fully know what's going to happen. It's not to me, I don't, while I see how it could be sinful, I don't think it's inherently sinful. And like I said earlier, there is this very real subculture of people that are Christians who are UFC fighters. And in a lot of cases, sometimes fighting in that capacity, that very controlled way, can be very healing if you've experienced a lot of trauma. Like, it's just a lot of times fighters come from backgrounds that are very difficult and have all sorts of, in that sort of learning to channel those emotions and that fear, all those different things into something like a sport can be really, really transformative for a lot of people. So.
Oh, well, that is an interesting element to it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And to be honest with you, I don't find it sinful. And when you say that, I'm like, oh, I guess people would say that, but I guess so it's like anything else. I mean, I don't find boxing or wrestling sinful either, nor
football, kind of.
And football, or heaven forbid, watch rugby sometime.
Right. Well, a friend of mine, one time I was getting kind of a lot of criticism from some different people about writing a book about mixed martial arts. And a friend of mine chimed in and made a very good point of like, a lot of our biblical heroes trained in a capacity that would make mixed martial arts look like nothing. Like King David, like the training that he would have been doing, like basically his entire life was, they were ready to fight for their lives. That was just it. And so it's very hard. I totally respect if people don't want to do it, if they're, that's totally fine. But it's just that line of thinking that Christians couldn't participate or appreciate or, whatever, engage in that realm. Obviously I wrote a whole book about it. Yeah. I think Christians
it's probably
should
good that you think that then.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I always think too, if you have read the Old Testament lately,
yeah,
if you haven't, you probably should, because like you said, King David, just the years he was running from Saul and the different things that he was doing, it's like, see, he was, a man after God's own heart. So
yeah, for sure.
We should all take up MMA now.
That's the takeaway. I think
that's what you wanted out of this book.
At the very least, I think we can really appreciate the self-discipline. I think we can appreciate the tenacity. And then, personally, I find it really fun to just watch Christian UFC fighters and just, learn from them. So at the very least, that's a good starting point for people.
It is fascinating. Yep.
Yeah.
We had, now don't judge this. This is showing my age a little bit. When we were youth leaders, there was a young teen pageant for high school girls, and they could win scholarships. And there wasn't the bathing suit or any of that. But one of the things the girls had to do was bring forth a talent. Now, quite often they sang or painted or whatever, I mean, wonderful things. Well, one of the girls in our youth group's dad taught a karate class. And watching her walk on stage and go from, she was smiling and, they introduced her and she's like, hi, and I'm going to do this. And then watching that face come in and it was just like, everybody in the audience went, oh, but it was so beautiful because, she did very controlled movements. I mean, I think it was karate. It might've been one of the other ones. I'm sorry, I don't remember. It's 20 years ago, but but it was
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That you like remembered it too, because it really is. It's an art, like the amount of self-control and the amount of strategy. It's very much a, and with mixed martial arts, what's really neat is that you get in there and it's all kinds of fighting styles. So you might and this comes out in the book, is someone might be a striker. That means they like to punch and they like to box, and someone else might be a wrestler, and you have to, it's this very interesting, how are you going to rise to the occasion, whatever the occasion might be, and different challengers, and it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I agree. It just fascinates me. So, but we're being very indulgent to myself here, asking all kinds of questions.
Gotta move on.
These people would like their questions asked. So sorry about that.
Happy to answer them.
So this person would like to know, did you do anything today, special today, to celebrate your book launch?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. It was kind of an ordinary Tuesday, but that was nice. It was really nice. My girls and I have 2 daughters and a son, Vivian and Sophia, and I had pizza for breakfast. So Vivian told me that she was really proud of me and that my book was beautiful. That was very sweet. A gal came over and had coffee with me, and I gave her a copy of the book, and she was very excited about it. It's nothing crazy, but lots of little nice moments throughout the day that I've had the chance to reflect on it and just, be super thankful. It's a very surreal feeling. This is like years in the making, and obviously I haven't had a lot of time to stop and catch my breath between having lots of children and writing a new book and doing different things. And so just, and I've definitely felt very close to God today. Like, I feel close to God most of the time. And obviously even when I don't feel him, he's there, but there's just something that feels very, very cool, to see a long time desire come to fruition, and just lots of people texting me, sending pictures of the book, and so it's been a good day.
Awesome.
Thank you for asking.
That's the best way, and that is a great question, but that's an awesome way to celebrate that. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. So I got a question here, and I've asked it myself, and I always think it's a fun answer, is have you ever had, now I know you haven't said you've written 10 books, so have you any of your characters ever like go off into left field, like you're like, no, you're not supposed to be doing that, come back here?
That's a good
you?
question. Yeah, I mean, my characters do surprise me a lot. I kind of let them do. I have an idea of like who they are when I start, but I have a lot of moments when I'm writing where I'll be kind of like going along and I write that they do something and it like makes me smile, and it's like it not necessarily that they come out of left field, but I don't know. It feels like it's they're becoming real, I guess, is what it feels like. Is I probably what it is I'm getting to know them enough in the writing process that it's becoming more natural, and I'm starting to make them do things that make the most sense for their character. And that is really fun when that happens. Like when they say something and you're like, that's hilarious, or in romance, it's always really fun for me when the dialogue, you get like a fun conversation going, and it just sort of like works. Something comes together where what they're talking about, the subtext is fun, right? Like they're saying one thing and then what's really being said is different. Yeah, I always really enjoy that part of the writing process. And I'm a little bit of a goofball in that, like, I love romance, but I still get very like bashful. Like, I don't know, like as I'm writing, like the more like, nothing is really very explicit or anything, but the parts that are more romantically charged, I will get all like like pink cheeked.
That's awesome. I love that.
I know.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
too.
stop kissing.
You too. Yep, it's it's what makes it fun. It's a very fun part of the process.
That is awesome, and it you know what, it probably makes the book all the more real to the rest of us.
Yeah, hopefully.
I love that. And and this is a one that comes up a lot, and somebody wants to know, where did you get the idea behind for all your characters' name? Maybe not all of them. I mean, you have a lot of characters in this book, and there was a couple times at the beginning I went, who's this again? So
yeah, but, I totally get that.
Yeah, but they were wondering where you get the characters' names. Yeah.
I really just kind of think of them. What I tend to do is I pick names that I like, and I usually start off with just like a couple. I think I started this story off with definitely Audrey, which, that's a play on Adrian from Rocky. Yep. And, that's like her little nickname. And then Max, I just have always liked that name. Thought it would be good for that kind of character. And then I liked Roman. So I knew those three, Audrey, Max, and Roman. And then I think from there, what I typically do is every once in a while I'll just think of random ones. And I do always try to keep in my mind, like, make them different enough that they don't all sound the same. You know what I mean? Like, since there's an Audrey, don't name somebody something that sounds like Audrey. Try to change it up. But I do use like Nameberry, where I'll that's like a website, and you type in a name that you like, and I'll do that, and then look at all the other options and I like to try to pick unexpected names, because I think it helps maybe the story stick a little better sometimes. So that's just a little strategy that I do. But
yeah, interesting. That's one they ask that almost every time, and I love asking it, because it it just, I don't know, it's just different. Everybody does something a little bit different. I mean, and a lot of people do like you do. They use Nameberry or even maybe name books and things like that. But yeah, it's just interesting to
I always start off with like a couple that I really like, and then I sort of build. The names are less important for the other people, so it's okay if they come later. And some names change. You finish the whole thing and you're like,
that name's out. Sorry.
Right.
So what is the hardest thing about writing, and what is the easiest thing about writing?
Ooh, these are really good questions. So the hardest thing about writing, honestly, right now, the hardest thing about writing is I'm just not very fast. I'm not as fast as I used to be. I feel like I wrote After She Falls much faster than I'm writing my current book. The hardest thing about writing After She Falls was honestly just that, because I didn't have an agent, I didn't have any real plan. I mean, I knew what I wanted to happen, but I didn't have any of that in place. It was just a lot of like, am I doing all of this and nothing's going to happen? That was like the heart of that question in my mind of like, am I investing so much time and energy into this, and is no one going to want it? So just the fear of kind of rejection. And but now it's just that I think my life is different now. My brain has a lot more going on at all times, and it's just, I wish the process was faster, and I'm just learning that it's not going to be fast. I have to accept that. The easiest part of writing is, for me, I mean, I just really enjoy it. Like, I do the normal writer thing where I kind of like resist it at first, like, I kind of procrastinate. But when I finally jump in and do it, I love doing it. And I always feel like I always feel like I'm getting better. I always feel like I'm learning something new about God. It's forcing me to think about, my faith and other people. And so, I mean, that part's easy, and I really love that part.
Interesting. I think you're the first one that has ever said it that way. So
really,
yeah, really. I mean, and again, everybody's different, so I'm not judging anybody. It's just
right. No,
it's just a different perspective on that. I like that, and I have other people have said, I learned more about God through it too, because of different elements of the story, but
Right.
yeah, but just the process itself, that you just find joy in that. I think that's
Yeah,
really cool. So,
I really do, and it's there's a lot of things. Like I always tell people, like, I mean, I'm so thankful that I have a book and I'm an author and all of this. Really am. And for all the people that helped me do it along the way, because I needed so much support. I needed my husband's support. I needed, all these different people to step up and watch my children and do all these different things. But you really, I wouldn't recommend it as a career to anyone unless you really, really love it, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time by yourself. It's a lot of time getting criticism. It's a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of things about it that are not the funnest. So if you really love it, then take that as a good sign that you should probably be a writer. And if you're just kind of like, I don't love this, there's other things you could do that are easier.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys survive negative reviews. Somebody comes on here and says, "Oh, Chris, you shouldn't have done this." It's like, "Oh no, I'll never do it again." So
yeah. I mean, it's not the funnest part of it all, for sure.
I should never be a writer. So, but now we've hinted, and I want to catch this before we run out of time. We've got a few minutes yet, but I know you're working on book number 2, or are you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
book
can
number
you tell
2.
us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I would love to. So book number 2 coming out in 2022. Not
Awesome.
Really sure sometime. Just enjoy After She Falls.
We'll do that first.
Yes. Book number 2 is very different. I will say it's its own standalone book. And the best way I'm describing it right now is if folks are familiar with Joanna Gaines and Fixer Upper,
Yep.
that HGTV life, sort of meets Sweet Home Alabama, that classic romantic comedy with Reese Witherspoon. Sort of those two worlds colliding. It's a sort of a Southern summery type of read, with basically this woman starts off kind of on the fast track to success and fame, and it's looking really good. She's got this very perfect life, and things get very derailed very quickly. But she's got this reality television show, and so it's a very different world. But I think that hopefully a lot of the elements that people like about After She Falls will still be there. The Christian arcs, being very gradual and organic. That's something that I like exploring and writing. It's a very funny, different, interesting world, similar to the MMA world, but obviously, different, but just another tightly constructed, separate world that I think most people aren't familiar with. And then, just lots of fun little romance elements, some deeper things. The main theme of it is basically exploring the pressure to be perfect and what really goes on underneath the surface of what looks perfect. And obviously we have a God that works with us even though we are very far from perfect, and he is perfect. And so that's just kind of it's called a Pretty Little Pieces for those who are interested.
Thank you.
It's coming along. It's really fun. Like I said, I'm just slow.
Don't apologize for that. Your favorite author Francine takes 4 years to write a book, so don't apologize for that.
They're all so good. All so good.
They are. But again, she'll tell you, focus on your family too. So
that balance is definitely hard to strike.
And us readers will tell you, we need your next book, next week. But in reality, we know it takes a little longer.
Yes.
We don't like it.
I know.
We understand it.
I know. I've been in that position many times. I really understand how readers feel. And, I'm realizing that my process has changed a lot, and it will change a lot because my life will change a lot because I have 3 little people who are always changing. And, it's very, and you just I'm learning to embrace that it's all a gift. Like my writing career is such a gift from God. Obviously, so much of the series of events that happened are clearly God's hand on it. And then my family is obviously a huge gift, and wouldn't trade them for anything. I love my books and my babies, but always gonna pick my babies. So very blessed that I get to do both.
Yep, definitely. So I was going to ask something, and did you see that
Oh,
little
that's okay.
fly
I'm
away?
long-winded. So.
No, you were fine. So there was, is there a plan for more books, or are you kind of going to take some time off with babies?
You know, I'm not planning on,
Okay.
excuse me, been talking a lot. I don't have, my hope is more books. I would
Okay.
like a good steady,
Yep.
steady output of books. I would probably, in my ideal scenario, take a little bit of time in between. You know, I just had a baby 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And it's been hard, like it's a lot. I've been pushing hard for a long time, literally and figuratively. I've been pushing hard, and I wouldn't mind a little bit of downtime to sort of just bask in what has been done. But
Yep.
I'm also, like I said, I really do love writing, and I hope people love the stories and want more. And so the plan is get her done. Get
You
her
bet.
done. Yep.
We're looking forward to
Francine.
them all. So
Yeah, 4 years in between. That sounds pretty good. But she can get away with that because people are willing to wait that long.
well,
for good
awesome.
reason.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yep.
well, this was fascinating. I learned so much tonight. And I was eager to learn it because of the book. It was like, I was seeing a peek at you through your book. And so to get to know you was just it's sheer pleasure. It really was.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been really fun. Thank you so much. It's always fun to talk about the book, but always fun to, I just really do appreciate people who love to read and support Christian authors and show up to things like this and ask questions. I mean, you guys are the reason why we do it, and it's awesome. So thank you for having me and giving me the chance, and hopefully we can do it again when my new book is done.
You
That would be
betcha.
fun.
You betcha. And if you ever get coming towards West Michigan, let me know, and standing invite to come into the store too. So
awesome. I
love
would
to have
love
you
to.
visit. So
I would
that would
love
be
to.
awesome. Yeah.
Thank you,
awesome.
Chris.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. If you do not have a copy yet, bakerbookhouse.com has them for 30% off with free shipping.
Yeah.
So make sure you order many copies. They make great Christmas presents.
Yes.
And I hear the guys are reading them. So those hard to buy guys.
Just put them in everybody's stocking.
That's it. I had to buy early, and these were available, and they're really good. So there you go.
There you go. And then, Baker Bookhouse has a fantastic deal. I've been directing pretty much everybody to that. I mean,
Thank you.
It was $9.59 for a long time, and now I think it's like $11 or something.
Yep.
That's awesome. So please, I mean, that's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. We really, really appreciate that. We do.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you how much we do. So, but it was a pleasure having you. To let everybody know, this video will live on the website on Carmen's book place, probably with this book for now, because we're working on portals and stuff, and other things to tell me words for, and I go, okay. It's website stuff. I do books. But yeah, so if you missed any part of it and joined us later, had to leave early, please find the video there. And it is also available on Baker Bookhouse's Facebook page. So thank you all for joining us. And Carmen, it was so much fun. I looked forward to our next conversation already.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you.